about to show you how to set up your payroll with Patriot Software. I recommend getting started with a free trial unless you know that you're ready to sign up. It's pretty simple. All you need to create your account is your company name, your name, and basic information like your address and whatnot. And once you enter that, Patriot will create an account for you. So and then you'll be taken to the screen where you'll see a setup checklist and also a tax filing service setup checklist. So it's just to give you a summary of what you're about to do. So you'll see a list of information that you should gather before you get started to make the process smoother. Your company location information, which you probably already have. Tax ID information is very important. Federal, state, any local tax ID numbers. And the same goes for state unemployment tax numbers and the rate. You should have received something in the mail from your State Department of Labor with this information if you've applied. If not, you'll need to do that before trying to complete your setup with Patriot. So I would review this if I were you before getting started. And once you have and you're confident that you have the information that you need, you can expand this, by the way. Click continue. All right, so it asks if you have employees that work at a particular location. This location that I've entered or that it's pulling now is actually coming over from the initial setup when it created the account. So it asks for the company address. So now that the address is in the system, Patriot basically uses it as a default. And if that is the address at which your employees work at, then you'll just click yes. If it's not, then you can click no, and Patriot will give you an opportunity to enter any other addresses that relate to your business. Okay, it's added the one location to show that this is where my employees work, and you can review it and continue. I'm going to select no, we don't need to add another location. And next it wants to know if there are any payroll taxes that your business is not required to pay. Some organizations are exempt. For instance, if you have a nonprofit organization, you may be exempt from some payroll taxes. And in this case, then you can select my business is tax exempt and not required to pay some employer payroll taxes. Most for-profit businesses are not exempt in any way, so you will just select you're required to pay them. If you're not sure, Patriot Payroll does have some helpful information to help you figure out your responsibility. Click continue when you're done on this screen. All right, so this is just showing your tax ID number, and you should have received a federal tax ID number when you set up your business or you registered it, and this is where you'll enter that information. Patriot also has an article on how to apply for a federal tax ID number, so if you're interested and you don't have one, then you can click this link. If not, just enter your tax ID number here. Okay, and then it also has an advanced tax settings link here, so where you can input your payroll pay frequency. So if you're paying on a bi-weekly basis, which is every 2 weeks, semi-monthly, which is twice a month, usually on the 15th and the 31st, or weekly, they have all sorts of options here for you. And then you'll also need to select your federal filer type. So it gives you helpful information so you can figure out if you're a 941 or a 944. Typically the really small businesses that owe less than $1,000 in federal payroll taxes for the year will file the 941, which is an annual form. The 944 is quarterly. Sorry, I said that backwards. Typically, the 944 would be filed on a quarterly basis. Typically, the 944 would be filed on an annual basis for small employers who owe less than $1,000 in federal payroll taxes for the year. if you're not a small employer and you will owe more than $1,000 in payroll taxes for the year, you can select Form 941 and click Continue. Now we're on to the state unemployment rate assessment. So this is pulling up Florida state unemployment just because that's the location that I entered for the business. Yours will be specific to your location. So you should have received something in the mail from your state unemployment office about your state unemployment rate. And then it should also have a date that it will be effective. So Patriot needs to know that information, and so that it can withhold the right amount of taxes and pay it accordingly. If you had other state unemployment tax rates in 2020, you can select it here. Patriot will want to know that just because it's going to compile your year-to-date tax information for things like your year-end tax form and whatnot. So be sure to select this accordingly. We're going to select no so we can continue. Okay, and now we're on to custom hour types. This is just basically the pay types that you're going to be paying, the hour type. This is basically the hours that you're going to be paying your employees to work, right? So regular and overtime are pretty common. That's for any business. And as you'll see, they also have special codes for COVID, which is due to the pandemic that is ongoing. So if any of your employees are taking FMLA leave because they are sick or someone in their family is sick, you can actually click on these to figure out to get more details on them. So you can select that they're not frequently used, or select that they are frequently used so that they will show when you're entering your hours. Okay, and then as you see below, like if you offer vacation time or holiday time, then you can select this as well. You also have the option to add a new hour type that's not listed. And I also want to point out, now that we're a little further into this process, that if you ever need to go back at any time during the setup, there is a back button at the bottom left-hand corner. So feel free to do that. We'll click continue. Okay, so this is custom money types. This is basically just a type of payments that you're making. So some businesses pay out bonuses, commissions, expense reimbursements. For instance, if one of your employees goes to stay at a hotel because they're traveling for your company and you need to reimburse them for their expenses, you have the option of showing of stating that this is a repeating expense for your business, or if it's not. And Patriot will determine whether or not how it shows it when you enter your work hours. And okay, you have the option of selecting that this is a repeating expense that you'll be incurring or frequently used. You also have the option of editing here and adding a new money type. Click continue when you're done. Now you're going to have a couple of questions because we're on to paying employees. So the first question is, does your company need to add employee deductions? And it gives you a list of potential employee deductions you may need to add, which would be benefit premiums. That's for something like health insurance, right? If you're offering that and your employee needs to pay a portion or all of the premium, then you would need to have that deducted from their payroll. Same with 401k savings or contributions, wage garnishments, and loan repayments. So let's click yes here so we can just kind of see how it will be set up. So we'll select one and say it's 401k. And let's see, Patriot wants you to enter a deduction description. So it's very limited in characters, but I just have retirement plan deduction here. And then you'll select how that will be deducted. So you have the option of deducting it on a fixed dollar rate or a percent. And then also the amount per pay. If there's a set amount that's the same for everyone, you can enter that. A lot of times there is not, and it varies. So you would probably leave this blank. Okay, there are other options here if you want to add limits to the deduction, If you want to fill out any information that's about how this needs to be applied to the W-2 form, you can do that as well. And then click Continue. The next question is, do you need to add any more company level deductions? So you can continue to complete that same process over and over until you have all the deductions that you can think of that your company will need. We're going to click No so that we can move on. And so now it wants to know, does your company offer contributions? So that means, is your company actually going to pay out any expenses on behalf of your employees? So for health insurance or retirement, are you going to pay a portion of the premium or match their 401k contributions? So if you will, you can select yes, and it will take you through the similar process that we just went through, and we'll take a look at it. You'll enter a description. We'll put retirement contribution. And if it's related to a deduction, you can select it. And it is. This is related to their retirement plan deduction. So, right, this is going to be a match. And same thing as far as the method. You can select whether you're going to contribute a fixed dollar rate, a percent of their gross pay. If it's a fixed amount, you can enter it. Okay, if it's taxable because it's S Corp health insurance, you can select that. If not, just leave it as not taxable. You also still have the option of adding limits and altering how it will show on your W-2 form. The next question is company level. Do you need to add any more company level contributions? So this gives you the option to continue to that process and add as many contribution types that you will be making. We're going to say no so that we can move on to the next step. And Patriot wants to know if you use workers' compensation codes. We'll select yes. It'll want to know the state. So I'll select Florida here, and then it'll want your code. Okay. And so you can assign these in the future to the employees and report it by their wages. So you'll be able to track it. Click Continue. Click Save first, and then Continue. Okay. Now we're on to the question about how you will be paying your employees. So you have a couple of options. You can handwrite a check or you can print a check. You'll need your own printer and paycheck stock, of course, if you're going to print checks from the software. You can also use their direct deposit, which is really the most convenient way that I believe employers are paying their employees these days. And Patriot offers this for free. You might also want to do a combination of paychecks and direct deposit. So this is something to note for Patriot is that it has a 4-day wait time when it comes to processing direct deposits. So you'll need to submit payroll by 4 days in advance of the date that you want it paid by. So that's all that means. But you'll need to keep that in mind to make sure that your employees get paid on time. All right, so we are going to select that we're going to pay with a combination of paychecks and direct deposit just to see what information Patriot will need from us. So Patriot is to verify our identity. And this is only if you're going to be paying with direct deposit. If you were only going to be paying with handwritten or printed checks, Patriot would not need to do this step. So you'll enter your name, address, city, all this information, and Patriot will collect the data and verify it using a third-party service. You have about 3 chances actually to enter the correct information because Patriot can determine whether or not it's accurate. So it'll lock you out of this if you enter the wrong information too many times. So we're actually going to go back to the method of paying employees because I don't want to get my identity verified at this time. And we're going to go to write just handwritten or printed checks and continue. So now Patriot needs to know which layout we want to use for the check. So you have 3 options: check on top, check on bottom, check stub only, So you will need to determine what you have or how you want to print your payroll checks. And also, if no printing is needed, that's if you're going to be doing like a handwritten check. You'll also need to answer the question about your checking account number. Some checks, especially those that if you're getting a check from your bank, will have your account number already on the check. Or if you're ordering like a customized check, you can have them pre-printed. Some do not. You may just be ordering a blank check stock, and then you'll need Patriot to actually print that account number on your check stock. So you'll need to determine that and answer this question accordingly. And once you're done, click continue. So now you're ready to add employees. This is the next step. Patriot gives you a list of information you'll need to be able to do that efficiently. You'll need the personal information, pay information, tax deductions, if there are any, and then any company pay contributions you're planning to make for their benefits. Click continue when you have all that information prepared. We're going to enter a mock employee. Okay, name Charlene Beavers. And we're going to give, let's see, for social security number, address, okay, and specify whether the employee works from home and all that. You also have the option of adding an email address. And you don't have to, but it is convenient because Patriot does have an employee portal where you're able to load different tax documents, and that employee is able to see all of their information, even their payroll stubs and information through the employee portal. So this will just send them a link to set that up. Click continue when you have added that employee. The next step you'll need to do is add your payroll frequency for this employee. Now, if you remember when we set up the company, initially we selected weekly as the pay frequency. Well, Patriot is just going to confirm because some companies pay different employees on a different time frame. Some are paid bi-weekly, where some are paid weekly. And so if that's the case for you, you can, and your initial selection doesn't apply to this particular employee, you still have the option of personalizing it for them. I mean, if everyone's paid the same way and how you set it up initially, you can skip this particular option and leave it as is. The pay type, hourly employee or salaried employee, are the two options. And then you also have a salary non-exempt option. So you'll need to select that, their pay rate, and Patriot will tell you exactly how much they're making on an annual basis if they're salaried. And just answer a few more questions. Okay, as you see, if the person's covered by workers' compensation, Patriot will give you the option to select the code that applies to them. All right, click continue when you are done. Now you'll get to add tax information for the employee. So you should have their a W-4 form for each employee. It's a document that you should have them complete when you hire them. And so this will include information like their name, birth date, but also their social security number, their federal tax filing status, so whether they're single, married, filing jointly, and then any dependent information. So you'll need to enter that information here. One thing to note is that in 2020, the IRS issued a new W-4 form. It has a little bit different information on it. And so Patriot will want to know whether or not you have the 2019 or the 2020 version, just so that it can ask you the appropriate questions. So you'll just go in and answer these questions per the W-4 form. Okay. And these three, as far as the other adjustments, they need to have something in the boxes. So if you don't have any other adjustments for this employee, just enter 0. Otherwise, Patriot won't accept it. Now, down at the bottom, you'll see state withholding, and this basically will ask for information about your state income tax. I entered Florida for the state that this company is in, and Florida does not have a state income tax, so you'll see it says no income tax. But if you are in a state like Arkansas that does, then you can expect to see some options here that you may need to enter additional information. There's also advanced employee tax settings here at the bottom, so you'll be able to enter whether or not this employee is exempt from any Social Security or Medicare taxes, federal unemployment taxes, or state unemployment tax. And then you can select continue. Now, Patriot wants to know if you'll add any deductions for your employee. We'll say yes. It's basically just going to give you the option to select the deductions that you added earlier at the company level. So I just select retirement plan deductions, and then you'll need to enter the amount that's going to be deducted out of each check and whatnot. Click continue when you're done with that, and then continue again. You'll also be able to add any company paid contributions. So if you're going to be contributing anything to this employee's health benefits or retirement plan, you can do that now. We're going to select no because the process is pretty much the same as we've done. And now your employee has been successfully added. You'll have the option to add another employee. You'll need to complete this process over and over again until you have each employee added. And if you're interested in adding your employees in bulk, you won't be able to do it on your own. You'll need to contact Patriot's customer service. They can help you with that because they do have free payroll setup help. Okay, so we're going to select no so we can move on. Patriot will give you the option to review your employee added. So if you want to review their pay information, tax information, deductions, you'll just click this pencil here and it'll take you there. If you need to delete any employees, there's this trash can here. If you still need to add a new employee, you have the option here. Let's click continue to go on. Okay, as you can see, Patriot wants me to add a employer ID number for this particular state of Florida, and so it gives a reminder. Now, Patriot has taken us to the tax identification number. It wants us to enter the Florida State Unemployment Tax account number. You have the option of selecting that you don't have one yet, and that's what we'll do. Okay. Now it's time to review your payroll setup summary. So you'll see all the company information entered, all the payroll setting information, tax rates, pay types, and then your company level deductions and contributions, method of paying your employees, and then any employees you've added. Click continue when you're happy with it. Okay, so now Patriot needs your payroll history. This is basically to ensure that all of your year-to-date payroll information is up to date and in the system so that any reports you run are accurate. Also, you will get like year-end tax reports for your employees and for your company, and you want to make sure that anything you paid before joining payroll for the current year is reflected in the system. So Patriot wants you to add that manually. So you'll need to also confirm that you understand that if you don't enter all that information, that it could result in additional fees if Patriot has to make corrections later. I'm going to say we have paid employees in 2020 so we can see how it works. Patriot likes to know exactly which payroll provider you use to run payroll. These are some of the most popular: ADP, QuickBooks, Intuit, Paychex, Gusto. You also have the option of saying you had an accountant do it or you did it by hand. We'll select QuickBooks and then continue. Oh, here is payroll history. Patriot is going to give you a list of things that you should have done before you get to this point. So you need to have all of your employees added into Patriot Software, any employees you've paid this year, because you'll have to add pay information for each of them. And Patriot will pull from your employee list. If you have an employee that's not yet been added, then you won't be able to enter the complete information. Let's click continue once you understand the information on that screen. Now you can add your pay history, your payroll history. The important thing to note here is that you are not able to add payroll as a lump sum, but rather it needs to be entered on at least on a quarterly basis. So you can't enter 2 quarters worth of information in one lump sum. So here we'll need to select the pay period, start date. We're just going to say July 27th through July 31st, and we're going to make July 31st as a pay date. And we're going to click continue, and it wants us to select an employee. So ideally you will have all of your employees listed here. So you'll have to do this for each employee and for each period. So for each quarter that you paid employees in the current year. So let's click continue now that we've selected the employees who we're going to enter information for, and then you will enter any hours you paid them for, the wages that they earned, any other money paid to that employee, and then click continue. Any deductions that you withheld, continue. Okay, and then you'll need to enter federal taxes withheld, Social Security, Medicare, and then any employer taxes that you paid. So for Social Security and Medicare, you match that employee. Any unemployment tax that you paid out for state and federal. And then continue. Patriot will suggest that you go back and review your wages. If you think that everything is correct, just click ignore. Okay, so now you can review the payroll history, enter for that pay period to make sure it reflects how you think it should, and then click continue. You'll also be given the option to add another pay period to your payroll history, and this is what you'll do until you have everything added. We're going to say no so we can move on, and we will get to review all the payroll history information that we've entered. Click approve, and then ask if we're done entering all of our payroll history. We'll select yes. Okay, now we have a summary of the payroll tax adjustments that Patriot thinks we need to make. Patriot calculates how much we should owe for Social Security and Medicare and unemployment tax based on the information we've given it. So the amounts entered do not match up to that. So Patriot is suggesting we make an adjustment. If that happens for you and you find that Patriot is correct, you can accept all tax adjustments without having to go through it manually. Now, you'll reach this screen. This is where you'll need to enter your credit or debit card information. Now, this is for people who are using the free trial for Patriot. So you won't be able to go any further unless you enter this information. And then once you do, you'll basically be taken to a page where you can just select that you're giving Patriot the authority to file payroll taxes on your behalf, and you'll also add bank account information so that it knows where to pull those payroll taxes as well as payroll tax payments. And then you'll be done setting up your payroll.